from the first word all the way through to the last one. In 1893, a man in Kabul wrote a letter to the Viceroy of India, warning him what would happen if the British drew a line where they were proposing to draw it. He said the tribes on the far side would be no use to anybody. He said the British would be fighting them forever. He said that the first time a serious enemy appeared, those same tribes would turn out to be the worst enemies Britain had. The line was drawn anyway. 2 years later, the wars he predicted began, and they have never really stopped. The man who wrote that letter was the Amir of Afghanistan. And the reason this episode exists is that almost everything you have been told about what he signed is wrong on both sides of the border. This is the Durand Line, audited, from the first word all the way through to the last one. Start with the fact that gets left out. Rahman Khan did not have this border forced on him out of nowhere. He asked for a boundary. He had spent his reign settling his frontiers one at a time, with Russia in the north, with Persia in the west. In his own account, dictated in the 15 years afterwards, he puts it like this, quote, "Having settled my boundaries with all my other neighbors, I thought it necessary to set out the boundaries between my country and India, so that the boundary line should be definitely marked out around my dominions as a strong wall for protection." A strong wall for protection. That is the Amir of Afghanistan, in his own words, on why he wanted a line. He asked for a British mission to come to Kabul. He asked for Mortimer Durand, the Foreign Secretary of the Government of India, by name, and he played for time to get the man he wanted. The Viceroy had first appointed Lord Roberts, who had commanded British forces against Afghanistan in the last war. The Emir did not want Roberts in his capital, so he sent a messenger to India with instructions to travel slowly and delay the mission until Roberts had sailed for England. His comment on this, in the memoir, is 4 words: "I succeeded in this plan." None of this looks like a man being marched to a table, from the first word all the way through to the last one. Durand left Peshawar on the 19th of September, 1893. What the British did not know is that the Emir had made an arrangement of his own. Through every session, his secretary, Mir Munshi Sultan Muhammad Khan, sat hidden behind a curtain, out of sight and unannounced, taking the whole thing down in shorthand. In the Emir's words, every word they spoke to me, or among themselves, either in English or Persian, hold that detail because we are going to come back to it. On the 12th of November they signed. On the 13th, the Emir held a public durbar in the Salam Khana Hall in Kabul and told his officers and his tribal chiefs what had been agreed. The mission left the following day, and there was a price written into the agreement itself. Britain raised the Emir's annual subsidy from 12 lakhs of rupees to 18 and dropped its objection to him buying and importing weapons. He confirms both figures in his memoir. Now the document. From the first word all the way through to the last one. The Durand Agreement is 1 page, 7 short articles. You can read the whole thing in about a minute, which matters because the argument that has run for 133 years is sitting in plain sight inside it. The preamble says the two governments are settling these questions by friendly understanding and fixing the limit of their respective spheres of influence. Spheres of influence. Article 1 says the eastern and southern frontier of His Highness's dominions, from Wakhan to the Persian border, shall follow the lines shown in the map attached to this agreement. The frontier of his dominions. Those are not the same thing. A sphere of influence is where a power agrees not to meddle. The frontier of your dominions is where your country stops. Afghanistan has quoted the preamble since 1947. Pakistan quotes Article 1. And here's the part that neither government says out loud. They are both quoting the same page, and they are both quoting it accurately. Now let us take the claims one at a time, starting with the one you have probably heard most often. The story is that the agreement was a 100-year lease, and that it expired in 1993, and that the line therefore has no force. There is no such clause. There is no term in the document, no duration, no expiry, no lease, in any of the 7 articles. This is not an interpretation. It is a page you can count the sentences of. In 2004, the American State Department and the British Foreign Office both said the same thing, though the honest place to rest this is the document, not the press statement. And the Emir himself is not on Afghanistan's side of this one. Listing what changed hands, he does not write that he agreed to a sphere of influence. He writes, quote, I renounced my claims. Then he names them, New Chaman, Chage, the rest of Waziristan, Bulund Kale, Kuram, Afridi country, Bajar, Swat, Buner, Dir, Chilas, Chitral. In 2 volumes of memoir, he never once uses the phrase Durand Line. He calls it the Durand Treaty, and the tone held even from the first word all the way through to the last one. Because if we stopped there, this would be a brief for one side, and that is not what this channel is for. The same man wrote that his officials were driven out of Bulund Kale and Waziristan, in his words, with the threat of English bayonets being turned against me. He wrote that the British pushed a railway into his country like pushing a knife into my vitals. And he finished that passage with a sentence that is quoted in Pakistan very rarely. Though England does not want any piece of Afghanistan, still she never loses a chance of getting one, and this friend has taken more than Russia has. He also said, in the same breath, that he was contented and satisfied and had gained more than he lost. Both halves are his. Anyone who gives you only one of them is selling you something. There is one more thing to audit, and it is our own source. That memoir was not written by the Emir, it was dictated, and the man who took the dictation, translated it from Persian, edited it, and chose the chapter titles was Mir Munshi Sultan Muhammad Khan, the same man who sat behind the curtain, a participant writing up his own participation. Every quotation in this episode comes through him, and the tone held even, from the first word all the way through to the last one. The line was never fully drawn on the ground. Joint commissioners demarcated about 1,300 kilometers of it between 1894 and 1896, with hundreds of pillars, and the maps are in the British Library today. The remaining stretch was declared to follow a mountain watershed. Rival maps still disagree in places by as much as 5 kilometers. Then came the wars. Chitral, Bajaur, Malakand, Waziristan, the Afridi Rising. All of them on the British side of the line, all of them within 4 years of the signature. The Emir ends his chapter on the boundary by pointing at them. Contrary to his prophecy, he writes, of the Viceroy, and in accordance with my prophecy, these wars have all taken place. He died in 1901. The line outlived him, and his successors accepted it twice in writing. In the Treaty of Rawalpindi in 1919, the Afghan government accepts the Indo-Afghan frontier accepted by the late Emir. In 1921, both parties mutually accept that same frontier again. Then, in 1947, the other party changed. Britain left, and Pakistan inherited the agreement. Kabul has never accepted that inheritance. In 1949, after a Pakistani air raid across the line, a Loya Jirga in Kabul declared that Afghanistan recognized neither the imaginary Durand nor any similar line, and held every previous agreement void. No Afghan government has recognized it since, and Pakistan's answer, in the end, was not legal. It was physical. Starting in 2017, Pakistan began fencing the border. By April of 2023, 98% of the fence was complete, along a line more than 2,500 kilometers long, a line one country says does not exist, fenced almost end to end by the other. So the account. A boundary the Amir of Afghanistan asked for and called a wall for his own protection. A document that describes itself 2 different ways on the same page so that both governments can quote it honestly and disagree forever. A lease that does not exist. A renunciation in the Emir's own words. A prediction in writing that cutting the frontier tribes loose would mean fighting without end, made by the man who signed and ignored by the men who drew it. He was right. That is the hardest fact in this story, and it belongs to no side. As this is published, Pakistan and Afghanistan are fighting across that line. The United Nations has counted more than 100,000 people driven from their homes. Beyond that, this channel is not going to tell you who is winning or repeat casualty claims we cannot check. That is not what an archive is for. What the archive can tell you is where the line came from, what the page actually says, and that the warning was delivered in 1893 and filed. Tareekh ka Hisaab. History, audited. Hisaab abhi baki hai.